Welcome to today's webinar presented by Supercoder.com. Supercoder.com is an online coding solution offering Part A and B coding reference tools, resources, and not more than 30 specialty coding and compliance newsletters from the Coding Institute in one site. I hope you enjoy this short session.
Of the ICD-10 system that America will be using, and if you have any literature that does not have that particular logo, then that information is outdated. Slide number 2 has my typical disclaimer, but it's also to remind you that the information that you're about to see, most of it is in draft from CMS, from the ICD-10 system. We still have finalization to happen, but I may reference other things that you currently are doing in your office, and I want to be sure that no one ever changes the way they do something in their office because Jill said so. It should never be because a speaker has said that so, but rather the speaker has made you aware of a rule that perhaps you didn't know of, misinterpreted, saw in a different light, but that you go back and do your own research to make sure that that rule is in effect, so that if you make a change, it's because of the rules and not because of a speaker who you may have misheard or who may have misspoken. And that's always true for a lecture. So let's turn now to slide number 3 and get started. We talk about our international classification of diseases, the ICD system, and it has a variety of functions that it carries out, and it's obviously not just for reimbursement purposes, but that's really what we know it about in the world of healthcare that we're in. It's about getting paid for services that are provided, getting paid appropriately and accurately. We know that the ICD system also is used to look at patient outcomes, potentially improve patient care. It's utilized in things like our pay for performance. But the bottom line is that we need accuracy in our coding system. The CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, uses this data for many different things, but again, the need for accuracy is enormous. And one of the things that I would ask you to take a moment to think about is how good a job right now is your provider doing in the documentation in order to allow you as a coder to come up with the most accurate diagnosis code. If you find yourself using a lot of codes that end in 9, that's probably not a very accurate code. Sometimes it is all we have, but if you're using 9s all the time, it means you may not be coding to the greatest specificity that could be available if that documentation had given you more information. And again, to the providers who may be listening, let me apologize, I kind of talk to coders in the coders world, but for you, make sure that you're documenting to the greatest degree of accuracy and specificity that you have. Our accurate coding, as we see in the next slide, does get us reimbursed, but remember, just because you were paid doesn't mean that you did it right, and that's kind of a difficult one to remember. But we need to code with accuracy. We need to get paid for the work that we do. We need to have treatments and outcomes reflected in our coding. Again, as I mentioned, the PQRI, PQRS system, or pay for performance. There's many different things that utilize codes, and if the codes are not correct, then everything that we're working with or everything that works with these numbers is skewed or is not appropriate. If we look at a code that is assigned for a particular type of cancer and a person is on a protocol based on that cancer code and the code is not the right code, then they could be potentially getting the wrong kind of cancer treatment. That's clearly an extreme, but I think you get the intent of my comment. We know our ICD-9 system is obsolete. As I give this lecture on the ICD-10 system, I find myself looking at those dates and having people in the room that say, I wasn't even born in 1979 when we started to use the ICD-9 system, and that makes me feel quite old. But it also gives you a sense of how long this particular system has been around, and that other countries in the world are no longer using the ICD-9 system. They have moved on. We are the only large developed country that's currently using the system, and the World Health Organization that supports the ICD system no longer supports ICD-9, and it is
Supercoder is the fastest growing online reference tool with more than 25,000 subscribers, call 866-228-9252 to get a free product demo, or sign up at supercoder.com for a 7-day free trial.